Welcome to the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast, a presentation of Real Country 92.1 Hank FM. Live from Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks, the Aledo Bearcats Coaches Show podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth. And now, with head coach Robby Jones, here's the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist.
Bearcats at the Tascosa 40-yard line. Play action fake. Beard to throw over the middle. Passes caught. Kaiden Finley trying to break a tackle to 15, which he does. Makes another move to the 5, and he walks it into the end zone. Touchdown, Aledo Bearcats. 40 yards from Gavin Beard to his pitch and catch friend, Kaiden Finley. And the Bearcats are blowing this thing wide open at 41-0. And they wouldn't stop there as the Bearcats were on a roll in their regional semifinal game this past Friday. We welcome you to Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks. I'm Kevin Lonnquist, here to bring you the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. Of course, Boo Rays of New Orleans and Hudson Oaks. There are also locations in Lake Worth and in Crowley. And we also want to recognize our presenting sponsors, H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda in Fort Worth. Aledo and Denton Ryan, the sequel this Saturday in Crowley. The number 1 and 12-1 Bearcats and the number 3 and 12-1 Raiders at 2 o'clock at the Crowley ISD Multipurpose Stadium. Class 5A Division I Region I Championship or the state quarterfinals if you prefer that designation. Hank FM coverage starts at 1:30 with Kyle Hicks, Mercedes Meyer, the Deacon, and yours truly. Aledo and Ryan, who will know who advanced to the region, or I should say, who advanced from Region 2 because Highland Park plays Frisco Lone Star at the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco. That's a 7 o'clock kickoff on Friday. So half of that state semifinal will be set before the Bearcats and the Raiders kick off. Our first segment, always with head coach Robby Jones. We're going to be reviewing the 62-7 victory over Amarillo Tascosa in the regional semifinals on Black Friday out in Snyder. And then we'll look ahead to the rematch with the Raiders. And then our second segment, we will be joined by running back Kaiden Winkfield and defensive end Cooper Cyphers. Get their thoughts about the win over Tascosa and preparing for the Ryan Raiders. All right, Coach, literally perfect afternoon for your team. I don't think I've ever seen a team go 9 for 9 in possession, scoring the football like you guys did. And there's been a lot of incredible things we've seen with this Aledo offense over the years. And you don't even go 9 for 9 against air sometimes, but you went 9 for 9 to start this game. And on your 10th possession, that was your victory formation on the last snap of the game. Was it that easy? Was it a case where your team was that locked in, or was it just both? Or how do you account for that?
Yeah, I think our kids were very much locked in, ready to go when we started the game, and I think that was, a lot of their preparation, mentally, with the long drive. We had a 3-hour drive, but we stopped on the way and got out and stretched our legs. But I think the kids got off the bus ready to go. I think the fact that we practice in the morning had a little bit to do with that because they're used to getting up in the mornings. We left the field house at 6:50, and normally we start practice at 6:40. So it was kind of a routine for them. So, yeah, I think we got off the bus ready to go, and our kids went out and executed well.
And speaking of executing very well, Gavin Beard, 15 for 15, 275 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I know I keep asking you this, but are you seeing just a rise in confidence, belief that he can make every throw? What do you see right now from him?
I mean, there's definitely a lot of confidence right now, and and he does a really good job in the game of getting the ball to the open receiver. And then the receivers, make the catches. He wouldn't be, what would you say, 15 or 15 if we were dropping passes.
Right.
So that's another big part of it is the fact that our guys are making the plays when the ball's coming their way. And that's a really big thing is, making the play, and that's what we talk to the receivers. You're not going to get a whole lot of opportunities to catch the ball, so you better make the most of every opportunity.
We talk about the game slowing down, even at this level. Do you think it's slowed down for him even from the opener to where he is now?
I think so. He's always been a real calm, cool character. I don't know if you can tell that about him. But,
yeah.
But I think he has caught up to the speed of the game. He's been on the varsity. He was on the varsity last year. Of course, he didn't get as many reps as what he's getting right now. But, the speed of the game, he's caught up to it.
Okay, so as for Tascosa, they were without their starting quarterback, Colton Fulton, out with an ACL tear, which is unfortunate for him. He suffered in that game, their area playoff win over Saginaw. What do you think would have been different for the Rebels, and as you were preparing for him at quarterback, how do you think that changed their whole approach to this game?
I mean, they ran the exact same offense, so it didn't change their offense. Now, it changed who the trigger man was, and it may have caused them not to have as much confidence. So, because you could see after the second touchdown, they were kind of deflated. And so, it was almost the fact that, maybe they kind of, were seeing their fate and said, okay, well, it's over. Because we don't have our starting quarterback. They also were without their starting running back. So, and that's the second week in a row that we faced a team that had lost their quarterback with a torn ACL. Yeah. And so, the ACLs, I don't know what's going on this year, because we've had, within our program, we've had 7 of them, from freshmen all the way through the varsity. I know when I talked to Coach Doris right before we played them, they had 4 on their varsity. So, I don't know what's going on with the ACLs right now, but, it seems to be a problem.
I don't know if it could be, maybe it's a turf thing, or maybe it's just, as one thing that has been shared with me about that is the fact that because players are so well conditioned and so well toned that everything is so tight, so that any kind of slight movement doesn't allow for any kind of give in that knee in sort of respects. Do you buy that?
I mean, that could be part of it. The kids are bigger and they're faster and stronger than, they were back when I was in high school, but and sometimes it just happens. Sometimes people just have bad ACLs. We had a kid a few years ago that, tore, his left ACL one year, and then the very next year tore his right ACL. So, sometimes it just might be that. But, I think it might have something to do with the fact that, kids are bigger, faster, stronger, and, putting a lot more stress on those ligaments.
For sure. Okay, now speaking of people that you lost running back Ray Guillory to an ankle injury, his right ankle, I believe. It was on the first possession. Where is he at, and just what was his feeling when he got back from his visit to Ole Miss over the weekend from visiting with you guys?
Yeah, I think he probably could have gone into the game on Friday, but by the time, that we got, by the time we finished looking at him on the sideline, we were already up 14-0.
Right.
And so we were just like, okay, there's no reason for Ray to go into the game today, and then he did go on a visit to Ole Miss over the weekend. He did treatments, over the weekend with it, and then he also was with Coach Little this morning, and then again after school today. So we're expecting for him to make a full recovery and hopefully be full speed on Saturday.
That's what we kind of thought, too, during the game itself, is that when you all jumped out to the quickly, Kyle Hicks and I were thinking that if it got close for whatever reason, maybe you would bring him back in if it was something that you felt like he could play on. But given where it was going, the game was, in fact, that it was like no sense of putting him out there if you don't need him.
No, there was no reason. And then plus, Kaiden Winkfield was doing a great job at tailback at the time. And,
sure.
And so there was no reason to bring in Ray and make his ankle any worse than what it already was.
Okay, so now for Guillory, National Signing Day is this coming Wednesday. It's a quick 3-day period between Wednesday and Friday. They've actually moved this up a couple of weeks from what it used to be, the middle of December. Now it's the 4th through the 6th, and so it looks like Ray's choosing between the University of Utah and Ole Miss. I wouldn't think that's a distraction because he's going to make his decision on Wednesday, but you've seen many of your players go through this process, especially in the early signing period. What's the thing that they have to kind of grapple with? Because Aledo's typically making deep playoff runs, and so they have to get through this while they're preparing to play another playoff game.
Well, most of them have already made their selection, so there's been very few that, that it's been on their minds. I know when JoJo signed, it was on his mind big time that week,
right?
Because he was originally, scheduled to sign with LSU, and then last minute flipped to Alabama.
Right.
It was bothering him. You could tell it was bothering him because, he was kind of a loyal kid. He didn't want to, upset the LSU coaches and all that. And we told him, hey, look, if that's not where you want to be, then you make the decision to go where you want to be. And he said, Coach, I want to go to Alabama. I said, well, let's get on the phone with Alabama. And he got with Coach Buck, and he and Coach Buck called the Alabama coaches, and they made that flip last minute. And then Jace would have been the other one. Jace was an OU commit.
Right.
And basically flipped on OU on signing day as well and signed with Alabama. But most of them, it's not as big of a distraction because they already have it set. They know where they're going to go, But, with those two guys, it was a little bit of a distraction for them. the guys last year, they all had their commitments and weren't even looking to change their commitments, so it wasn't a big distraction. And I think Ray has an idea of where he's going to go. He hasn't told me, so he's going to make that announcement on Wednesday. And we'll see how that goes.
And I think it's going to be 6 o'clock at the indoor facility. If that's
they want to do it 6 o'clock so that his mom could get there, so that his whole family would be there. So we're going to do it after we get done with weights and special teams and all that on Wednesday.
All right. So 2 other quick things on these first 3 playoff games. You all are averaging a ridiculous 61 points per game in these first 3. You also haven't punted either. I think we have to put out an all-points bulletin for your punter because. But seriously, these are ridiculous stats or notables from this. And so, and again, it's not going to go this way for as long as your season lasts, and you hope it runs all the way up before the Saturday before Christmas. But what do you attribute that to for the 61-point average and then not even having your punter punt?
It's the execution of the offense, and then also the defense putting us in good situations because, we get put in good field position and we go get a couple of first downs. Then we're in 4-down territory. So, you take the punting out of the equation, and that's the way I like it. I've told you before, I hate to punt. And punting against Denton Ryan is dangerous because they can block punts. They really last week got set up inside the 10 2 times off of Richland's punt team. Or actually, they scored one of them. One of the other one was a pick that set them up. But Richland muffed a punt, gave him the ball on the 8-yard line, and then later on, the Richland punter punted it in the back of one of his guys, and Denton Ryan picked it up on the run and went and scored. So, we don't want to put our punt team out there against these guys, So we're going to do our best to move the football and put ourselves in situations where we're not having to punt against them. Okay,
and so as we turn our attention to Ryan here, this was the matchup that many of us expected after you all met on October 4th at Tim Buchanan Stadium. And aside from what you just said, give us a state of what you saw from Ryan then to what you are seeing from them now.
I mean, I think they've gone in a little bit and maybe simplified their offense for their guys. They're not running as many different plays as what we had seen prior to our first meeting. When we started watching the video of, their later part in the season, they're sticking with pretty much, base and zone and stretch with a little bit of mixture of other things. So they've, made a big concentration on the run game, and they got a big old offensive line.
Oh yeah.
That's probably was very beneficial to them was to start concentrating on that. And we're expecting to see, a lot of run game. We're expecting to see the Mussett kid come in a lot at quarterback and do kind of their wildcat stuff with him at the quarterback. But it's still the same old Ryan, different defensive coordinator, but they're still running a very similar, defense. There's not a whole lot has changed.
One of the things about their first meeting with you all is that they obviously hit you with some explosive plays, especially on the perimeter. And then, of course, they ran their big defensive tackle, Uzziah Warmade, for a 4th and short at midfield, and he took it the distance 50-some-odd yards for that. So, when you look back at that game, do you try to dissect that as much as possible, or do you have to say that was 2 months ago and that may not be as much of a thing that we need to account for? I mean, there's got to be a balance that you have to kind of weigh there as you're trying to break this thing down.
No, you definitely got to prepare for what was successful for them. Whatever was successful for them, they're going to try to do those things again.
Right.
So we got to make sure that we don't give up those big plays, and that was a big part of that first half was the big plays that they got. That led to them having a 19-point lead on us. But then, and that's one of the things that I've noticed about Denton Ryan is they're a fast starting team. That they get off to an early start on just about everybody. And, we talked today about, hey, let's make sure that we're focused up and we're ready to go when that first kickoff happens so that we don't get behind to these guys again.
To use this phrase, kind of like keep the game in front of you, not chase it, that sort of thing.
I mean, because that's kind of what's happened to a lot of people against them. It's kind of similar to what's happened with us in the playoffs. We got off to those fast starts in all the playoff games, and that's kind of been their momentum or their mojo as well, as getting out there and getting the fast start.
6th meeting all time between these two great programs. Ryan won the first 2. You all have won the last 3, including, of course, what we've talked about, the come from behind 42-27 win 2 months ago. This has been a special series with these games coming down to the fourth quarter. And if you can put your finger on it, What do you think's really been the deciding factor? Is it just a case of somebody making plays and the other one not, or what do you think it's really been?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. You know, if you look back to last year's game, Hoss Haney made a great play to basically win the football game. They had us beat, and then Hoss made a great play on a 3rd and long on a quarterback draw, and so a lot of times it comes down to that one play, and I'm hoping that it doesn't come down to that one play this time, but
yeah.
We've kind of gotten a little bit of a rivalry with them, just played 5 times, but still, I think there's the respect that each program has for one another, and the fact that we've been thrown in the district together the last 2 go-arounds has kind of led to, hey, we're looking and watching what Ryan's doing, and they're looking and watching what we're doing, and the fact that we, both teams expect to make long playoff runs and have a chance to win a state championship. It just naturally makes it a natural rival.
Sure. And with all that being said, with so much on the line, with so much on the line, a trip to the state semifinals, how do you try to make it more about another step to where you want to go rather than making it about Ryan, because you don't want it to overshadow what it is, what the ultimate goal is?
Yeah, and that's making the main thing, which is, hey, look, this is our only opponent that we have this week, and we can't just focus on, the rivalry with Ryan. It's, hey, this is our game to go to the next level, and that's what we're going to focus on and make sure that, things don't get chippy, which sometimes do in rivalry games. That hadn't been a problem with the Aledo Ryan games that we've had. There hasn't been a lot of extracurricular stuff after the plays, and I think that's based on the fact that both programs are as well coached and disciplined as what they are.
So as we look at Ryan a little bit more offensively, their quarterback Quinn Hennigan, of course, who you saw back in October, they've really upped their game offensively. He seems to be more explosive, more comfortable taking some vertical shots. What do you see from him in recent tapes?
Yeah, he just does a great job of operating their offense, and that's why he's their quarterback. Is he does a great job of getting the ball out to the playmakers. They do a really good job of scheming up some plays. They did a couple on us. They had some really good schemes against us the first time, and then he hits those open receivers, and they go make big plays.
Okay. And you talked about their offensive line. Obviously, we saw it a couple months ago, how physical that group is. I can remember talking to your defensive front. I think we had Carson and Cooper on about the week leading up to that Ryan game, just talking about the physicalness that Ryan offensive line will present. And, of course, we talked about their running game. Trayvon Reynolds and Nehemiah Warmade combined 1,900 yards. Warmade is over 1,000 yards for the season going into this game. So the challenge that running game is going to pose for your front seven, really all of your defense, but really in particular your front seven.
Yeah, and we've done a pretty good job against the run all year, and we need to do that again this week. But it's going to be a big-time battle, and that's what we talked about the first time we played them. It's going to be a battle, and it was. It was a 4-quarter war that was taking place out there, and I expect the same thing. So it's going to be a physical, if you got a little something bothering you, you're going to have to, deal with that, play through some pain and go get after it each and every snap.
Rub some dirt on it, as they like to say.
Rub a little dirt on it.
Exactly. Their defense, now they will give up some points, and some of that it might be a little bit misleading because of the fact that they're quick starts, and then they might tend to relax a little bit. But what they have done this year is turn you over. And I know when Gavin faced them, he did have the early interception, which they were able to convert. So what does he have to look for? I'm sure he also wants a shot at redemption to play much better. Even though it was a win, I'm sure he feels like he owes himself and just from a better game. And that's what competitors like to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's planning on playing, better than he did the time before, but, you got to give them credit. They cause problems. They cause turnovers, and we got to make sure that we don't do that because, they thrive on that. If you look at last week's game against Richland, I've already talked about the special teams. They also had a pick that got them down inside the 10. So, their defense sets their offense up so well, as far as field position and all that. And we just got to make sure that we're concentrated on doing our job and move the football and put ourselves in a lot better situations.
Now, the schedule for you changed this week because of the Saturday kickoff. And so rather than going through the traditional schedule for a Friday game, how did you all navigate this week, and how will you navigate this week?
So because they played on Saturday, we weren't able to do our normal weekend, preparation. We did as much as we could. Some of us went to Frisco and watched the game. And then as soon as the game was over and we got trade video from Denton Ryan, coaches started working on it at home. Then we came up Sunday and did as much of the game plan as we could. But then we finished up the game plan today. So we didn't have an on-field practice as far as, because we still have the 8-hour practice rule and all that. But we brought the kids up, showed video, did a little walk through as far as, hey, look here, type of formation recognition type stuff. We did that during the first period athletics, and then we brought them back after school. Did a little bit. We do our victory laps that we do every week, and got in the weight room and got our weights in. So, and then a little bit more film study. So we were able to do a lot more film study with the kids than we normally do before practice starts.
Sure.
And then we're on a regular schedule from here on out.
Okay, and then finally for you, obviously when it comes to a game like this, it'll always be the devil in the details. And for me, I would think that's going to be in the red zone, not only from you from an offensive standpoint, that when you get inside the 20, you've got to finish. You can't settle for field goal attempts. And then the same thing when it comes to them, when they're trying to drive inside your 20, you've got to hold them out. So I would imagine that's going to be a real point of emphasis and maybe where this game could be decided.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do a really good job in the red zone every game. You got to put, touchdowns on the board as opposed to field goals. And then if you allow them down into the red zone, you got to try to make them, kick a field goal.
All right, sounds good. We'll look forward to it. Should be another great one between two very solid programs, Aledo and Denton Ryan. Coach, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.
All right, and so this Aledo Coaches Show podcast is always brought to you by our two presenting sponsors. First, H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And Hiley Mazda. Head to Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth today. Their new state-of-the-art facility is conveniently located just off of I-30, exit Las Vegas Trail, and experience top-notch service and hassle-free buying. Don't forget to ask about this month's special offers. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family-owned and operated for more than 30 years. Podcast will return with our second segment. We will be joined by running back Kaiden Winkfield and defensive end Cooper Cyphers right after this timeout. Opening quarter, Aledo leads 7-0. It is a give to Winkfield up the middle. Room to run, 50, 45, and he's gone. 40, 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, Aledo Bearcats. That was 57 yards, one of 3 touchdowns that one of our guests here, Kaiden Winkfield, scored in the 62-7 win for the Bearcats over Amarillo Tascosa in the Class 5A Division I Region 1 semifinal game out in Snyder this past Friday. We welcome you back to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast. I'm Kevin Lonnquist. Now time to start our second segment, which will begin with the Aledo Alumni Report. And quarterback Braden Fowler Nicolosi of Colorado State, huge performance for him. He led a 29-point explosive fourth quarter to rally the Rams past Utah State in the regular season finale, 42-37. Fowler Nicolosi threw 3 touchdowns and ran for a fourth. He also threw for 370 yards. The Rams finished the regular season at 8-4 and 6-1 in the Mountain West Conference. They were actually tied for the second spot with UNLV, but did not go to the Mountain West title game because of a tiebreaker with the Rebels. For this season, Braden Fowler Nicolosi has thrown for 2,475 yards and 13 scores. And a linebacker over at LSU, you might remember him, Devon Keys. He did get the start last week for LSU in their regular season finale against Oklahoma. He's made a couple of starts this year. He's also appeared in 6 games. In the win over Oklahoma, that was a 37-17 victory for the Tigers. 10 tackles and a sack for him. LSU finished the regular season at 8-4. For the entire season for Keys, 26 total tackles. 8 of those were solos. He had 1.5 sacks for him. So a good start for Devon Keys, as of course you have to play 4 games or no more than 4 games in order to not burn your red shirt. But with Keys playing 6, he's off to the races with his college eligibility. Second segment now, we are joined by defensive end Cooper Cyphers and running back Kaiden Winkfield. Guys, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so Cooper, let's start with you with this defense, getting ready for this offensive attack that Amarillo Tascosa had. You hadn't seen the flex bone in a long time, and so getting ready for them and understanding how they might run this fullback dive and assignment football. What was it like in preparation last week, especially as a defensive end that would crash down, that sort of thing, to kind of watch how the trigger man would run the offense?
Yes, sir. It's really just in how we practice, just being more physical. Really, the most physical team is going to win. So
Okay. And then for you, Kaiden, obviously, you guys didn't do anything differently. You guys felt like you had some pretty good matchups there. Of course, it would show 9 for 9 when you touch the ball and you score. But just kind of talk about the offensive approach, because you guys have gotten off to quick starts so much in this playoff run.
Right. So we just go over practice every day, just pay attention to formations, going to the film room and just studying more of the defense and seeing Tascosa run the same defense that we run. And we went against that in the spring. We use that as a big advantage for us.
Okay. Now, Coach Jones had mentioned it in our visit a few moments ago about the fact that when you all got up 14-0, it seemed to take a little bit of the juice out of them. Did you sense that yourselves there? Let's talk. What did you see from your side of things, Cooper?
Yes, sir. They weren't as physical after we kept getting up. You could see their heads starting to drop. They just kind of it took the fight out of it, really.
Okay. And then for you, what did you see from an offensive standpoint going against their defense, Kaiden?
When we scored our first touchdown, I already knew that they was giving up. I knew it was over for them.
Yeah, I think the one thing about this game, though, if you want to narrow it down, really, the point of decision was basically your 4th down and 8 at their 31-yard line on the opening possession. And then Gavin hits Blake Burdine on the 31-yard touchdown pass. And once you guys converted that, I kind of felt like, okay, here we go. And then boom. And then I want to ask you a little bit about this, Kaiden, because you've done this a time or two this year where you've taken over the running back duties when Ray's gone out or had to deal with something. Of course, he went out with the ankle injury. So when you know that you're going to get the bulk of the carries, what's just kind of the mentality that you take saying, this is going to be most of my carries for this game? What was your feeling about that?
I mean, I was ready to go. Whenever Ray comes out, I go in. I'll just handle business.
Okay, so I want to ask you, too, because there's been this time or two this year where you and Ray have been in the backfield at the same time, standing to either side of Gavin Beard. What's that like, though, in terms of, and you don't want to share any secrets because this is going to be heard by everybody, but in terms of just what kind of a threat that poses when opposing defenses see both 1 and 21 out there?
It poses a huge threat because you can use both of us with whatever we do. Pass, run, pass blocking, don't matter.
Okay, and then Cooper, for you, I mean, as far as just the way this defense has played through these first 3 games, if there was one single common denominator that you felt like you guys have accomplished to this run, what would you think it is to this point?
It's being physical. That's what they preach every day in practice, just keep being physical.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these stats for these 2 young men here. Again, Kaiden had 142 yards and 3 touchdowns. The 57-yard touchdown run, the big one against Tascosa. I'll get to that question for you on that run here in just a few moments. For the season, he has also rushed for 855 yards, 13 touchdowns. So if everything goes right, he could finish with a 1,000-yard season. As for Cooper, 38 total tackles for him. He has a team-leading 4.5 sacks and also a team-leading 9.5 tackles for loss. So, Cooper, I'm going to ask you, are you and Carson Dempsey getting into the contest of who can get the most sacks by the end of the season, or how's that been like between you two this year?
It's just same, just competition, but we do have a thing where if we can get to 10, what's his name? Someone's bringing us to go get some chicken. So.
Okay. Is that combined or is that individually?
Just
here?
individual.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, you've got 5.5 to go, and I think he has about 6.5 or 7.5 to go. So you've got some doing here to do here in the next week. Okay. Now, for Kaiden, I want to ask you a little bit about the 57-yard touchdown run there, because once you broke through the initial contact at the line of scrimmage, that was like nothing but clear sailing. Just tell us what you saw on that play.
I saw nothing but grass. As soon as I got past those defenders, I knew I was going to take it to the house.
Okay, so let's ask you about making the long bus ride out to Snyder. A lot of windmills to see, that's for sure. We saw that. But let's just talk about just handling that preparation, just going through that routine. You know, Coach Jones had talked about the fact that you all get started with practice so early in the morning that's nothing changed from a body clock standpoint, but then you're on the bus kind of settled in there for a while. So what was it like just going through that travel and just making sure that you were still prepared when you got off the bus getting ready for this game? Let's start with you on this, Cooper.
I liked it because we got to rest 3 hours before the game, so I liked it because it kept us off our feet, had us feeling good before the game.
Okay, and then what about for you, Kaiden? How did you see that?
We get extra rest and just preparation, thinking about what we're doing for the game, what we need to focus on.
Anyone catch any catnaps, or was there too much talking, or what was the mood on the bus there? How was it?
I I say it was real quiet.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, same for you on that, Cooper?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now let's turn along about the season itself. I mean, Kaiden, this has been what I think you had hoped it would be in terms of you just getting your opportunity to show what you can do. What's this season been like for you since we just quoted your stats? How have you felt like you've grown as a player at this varsity level?
I felt like I've grown a lot. I really, my goal is to hit 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns, which I already hit. So now I'm just working up to get to those 1,000 yards that I need.
And then for you, Cooper, what have you felt like you've seen where your greatest areas of growth has been?
Yes, sir. I feel like I've done a lot better than last year with having my broken hand, missing 6 games. So I'm just trying to stay healthy and just be able to play the whole season.
Okay, now let's turn our attention to the Ryan Raiders. Of course, this is a game that you guys know. You know this opponent pretty well from the meeting 2 months ago when you all rallied to win 42-27. There's always going to be that rivalry between you all and them, but how do you try to make sure that you don't get so overzealous in looking at them as opposed to what the main objective is, and that's trying to just win the next football game to get to the state semifinals? Kaiden, we'll start with you on this.
I mean, it is going to be a fight. It's going to be a dog fight, and I'm ready for that. We all are. It's very much expected, and I do want to get that get back.
Okay,
And
then for you, Cooper, how do you see that?
You just got to lock in on practice. If you can do all of it in practice, you can do it in a game.
Okay, so the lesson from the game, I mean, obviously you guys showed that you came back from a huge deficit down 27-8 to win that game, but they are a quick starting team, as Coach Jones had mentioned. So what's been the point of emphasis that the coaches have talked to you about? You heard what Coach Jones had to say, but internally, as player groups will meet with each other and talk about things like that. I'll start with you on this, Kaiden, because defense can start quickly too. They could force a turnover. They could just create all sorts of havoc, get a quick 3-and-out or successive 3-and-out. So what's been the focus of conversations among just the offensive players about making sure that you don't let them get off to that quick start?
I mean, they preach a lot. We all preach a lot. No turnovers, no putting the ball on the ground or giving up the ball at all. Just running it down their throats, passing it down, just making sure we don't make no mental or physical mistakes.
Okay, and then for you, Cooper, I mean, for you guys, obviously, we saw what they did when they jumped out to the quick early lead. They hit you on a couple plays on the perimeter that sprung a couple touchdowns. Of course, they had the big, as we were talking with Coach Jones about the defensive tackle converting the 4th and short and running into for the long touchdown run. So what's going to be the key to making sure that you can try and keep this offense in front of you?
Yes, sir. We just got to cut out the mistakes. Every one of those touchdowns was a mistake. So if we can cut out the mistakes, we can narrow it down.
Okay, so let's just talk about a little bit about just getting ready for the physicalness of this game, because you guys have not gone through this really for basically the last month, really going back to the Richland game that went into overtime. So how are you guys trying to get ready for this, knowing that this is probably going to be a 4-quarter game? It could come down to the final 2 minutes, Cooper. Let's start with you about just from a mental standpoint and also a physical standpoint.
Yeah, we got to start it off. We got to start off strong. We got to start off fast because, yeah.
Okay, and then for you, Kaiden?
I say staying locked in and focusing on this week and then Ryan.
Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about as far as what you guys need to see from yourselves in terms of an execution standpoint. What do you want to see on this defensive side here? You talked about no mistakes, not making sure that the big plays happen, but what else do you want to see from this group here, Cooper?
We gotta get real physical because they're gonna be mad they lost. They want to come out real strong, so we gotta be real physical.
Okay. This offensive line that they have, again, you've already seen it. Anything on film that you guys have seen on them that may be a little bit different than what you saw leading up to the meeting on October 4th?
Yes, sir. They're starting to use their tight end more. Mm-hmm. And whenever we play them, I think Coach Kirk said he only saw them 4 times, and they're starting to use them a lot more. Okay, so when they do that, what does that tell you? They're trying to get the ball to them, or they're trying to do something to mess us up.
Okay, and then for you, you're going to face a really opportunistic defense, and they will give up some points here and there. But again, they feast on quick starts. So, what do you want to? What's the thing that you've seen on defense from them, Kaiden, as you all are preparing for this? That's the thing that's like, okay, we got to watch this and this in order to be successful.
I say they're linebackers. They love stacking the box, and if they stack the box, we could get it out to our receivers, and we got a quarterback that could do that.
All right. I was going to ask you about this offense, too, because we've seen the growth of 5 pass catchers. I mean, they've used you a couple times in the passing game, but now there's really 5 quality receivers that Gavin Beard can go to. What has that changed for this offense, even when you're standing on the sidelines and you're not in for a particular series, or even if you're in on a series? What has that changed about this offense in terms of just being able to have different options out there.
It shows we can do it all. We can't be stopped when we have all of our options. Anything we could do, all we got to do is just keep our mind straight, and we'll be all right.
Okay, and then for you, Cooper, the one thing that this team didn't do last year was win the turnover ratio much. I think you guys actually, even though you guys were 1, and it was a great season, of course, actually it was like either it was 0 or -1 in the turnover ratio. This year, +10. What's changed?
We want to get the ball. We got to go punch the ball out and get the ball.
Is there anything specific that you guys have done, though, to try and make that happen? Is it just reading keys? Is it just fundamentals, drills that you've worked on during the week? What would you say that would be?
Yeah, we've done turnover circuit and practice on getting the ball out, and we've done a lot of different drills.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about as far as just this week of preparation. As far as the schedule has changed because you guys will not play until Saturday. So what was that like having the extra day? What will that mean, if anything? We'll start with you on this, Kaiden.
It just gives us extra time to look at what we need to work on, what we need to fix, or what more we need to add for this Denton Ryan defense.
And then for you, Cooper?
Yes, sir. I got to sleep in. Felt great. My body feels good. So, yeah, it feels good.
All right. And then finally, let's talk a little bit about just the opportunity to play this deep, the first weekend in December. Obviously, this program has won 12 state championships, which typically means that it's going to be the Saturday before Christmas. What's it going to come down to if you all are to advance past Ryan? What's it going to take? I'll start with you on this, Kaiden.
It's going to take a lot of work and being mentally straight and physically ready to go, especially coming off of this game. Just any nicks or anything we have, we need to get that straight, ready for the next week.
Okay, and then for you, Cooper?
Yeah, we got to get healthy, just get in the weight room, get stronger, so we can be strong. And whenever we get there, we can get strong, we can be good.
Okay, and I lied because I have one more question. Does a week like this, though, and this is nothing to take away from what you dealt with last week against Tascosa or the previous week against Abilene or in the opener against Chisholm Trail, but is a game like this, like maybe you want to do something on your own, maybe study a little bit more film, want to maybe work on some things on your own, just foot movement, hand placement, things like that, even like just kind of like shadowing, that sort of thing. Even if you're at home on that, do you guys do anything like that? I'll start with you on that, Kaiden.
Yes, sometimes we pay attention to DBs. If they tackle low, tackle heads down. Okay. And if they just press the box more.
Okay, and then for you, Cooper?
Yes, sir. I got to watch my film against how we played last time, see what I can do to get to the quarterback and hit home.
Okay, how much have you done that to this point, and how much do you plan to do for this week coming up to the game?
We've watched twice already today, so I'm going to try to keep watching it 2 times every day so I can actually go out there and do it.
Kind of just burrow it into your mind so that it's kind of like a read and react kind of thing, I would suspect. Okay. All right, guys, really appreciate your taking some time with me. To my far left is Kaiden Winkfield, the running back who has rushed for 855 yards, and to my immediate left, Cooper Cyphers, the team-leading sack artist with 4.5 this year. Give him a big round of applause. And we want to remind you that this Aledo podcast is brought to you by H5 Sports Barn. H5 Sports Barn and Nye Physio and Performance can help unlock your athletic potential and elevate your game like the Aledo Bearcats. With expert sports physical therapy, tailored recovery plans, and top-notch sports performance training, H5 Sports Barn, proud supporters of the Aledo Bearcats. And Hiley Mazda. Head to Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth today. Their new state-of-the-art facility is conveniently located just off of I-30. Exit Las Vegas Trail and experience top-notch service and hassle-free buying. Don't forget to ask about this month's special offers. Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, family-owned and operated for more than 30 years. We will return next week for another edition of the Aledo Coaches Show podcast as we will review the Bearcats, what we hope will be a state quarterfinal win over the Denton Ryan Raiders, and as the Bearcats will hopefully prepare for the state semifinals. But either way, we'll look back on the Denton Ryan game. Don't forget the Bearcats on the air on Hank FM this coming Saturday with the kickoff with the Ryan Raiders. Number 1 versus number 3. Both teams coming into this game at 12-1. 1:30 is the pregame show on Hank FM. 2 o'clock is the kickoff. We hope you'll join us. I'm Kevin Lonnquist. We'll talk to you all next week. Have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Aledo Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by H5 Sports Barn in Aledo and Hiley Mazda of Fort Worth, with Bearcats head coach Robby Jones and the voice of the Bearcats, Kevin Lonnquist. Please like and subscribe to this podcast and tell a friend. You're also welcome to join us every Monday night at 7 from Blue Rays of New Orleans in Hudson Oaks. And then listen to every Aledo Bearcats game, home and away, live on Real Country 92.1 Hank FM, on the free 92.1 Hank FM app, or online at 921hankfm.com.